Hi everybody, and it's 3 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon and time for the weekly Raffingers webinar, giving you an update of where we are with the whole furloughing of staff and just the general update as things are sort of changing on literally a daily basis. We felt that it was about time we did another webinar just to get you guys up to speed with what's going on, and we've had obviously quite a lot of questions, as you can imagine, over the last couple of weeks, and we're trying to put it all together in a webinar for your benefit and help you get through some of these difficult few weeks to come. So a little bit of housekeeping at the beginning. As you'll see on the Zoom at the bottom, there's a Q&A button that if you could raise some questions that you have there, my colleague Paul is going to start beavering away and replying to a lot of those questions. And if you see that the same questions being asked a few times, just click on the thumbs up icon, as you can see, and then that will raise it up to the top of the list. So that's quite a nice way of trying to get these questions answered for you. We will be after this webinar, sending a recording to everybody so you don't have to really make your notes, and also any questions that we just didn't get around to answering, we're going to put together a nice fact sheet of all the questions and the answers, which again will be coming out to you shortly after this webinar. So what I'm going to be doing is just covering sort of 3 key topics now. So these are the main questions we're getting from clients and non-clients. Mainly the job retention scheme, the CBILS, how that's working, and just a few slides at the end about planning for recovery and what you guys should be doing from a business point of view. Job retention scheme. So who can claim? Now this is quite interesting because this was all sort of released just before Easter, and who can claim. And basically you must have these 4, you must meet these 4 criteria. First one, you have to have a payroll scheme set up on or before the 28th of Feb, which I assume most people have, and a UK bank account, which again most people have. Now the big issue we're having at the moment is having a PAYE online account that you have to enrol for. Now this is sort of thrown a spanner in the works for ourselves and for some clients, because you don't have to have a PAYE online account. It's not mandatory, and what it appears that their portal that's being launched hopefully next week, which I'll talk about a bit later, that obviously the PAYE online account and that portal talk to each other. So you have to have that reference and be registered online. So if you're running your own PAYE scheme, you need to make sure you have a PAYE online reference number to enable you to make the claim. And we're going through our client base and making sure all our clients have this online e-number before obviously the portal goes live. So they're the 3 things you must have to make the claim. Just one thing before we move on that we're getting asked quite a lot about is apprenticeships. So apprentices can be furloughed in the same as any other employee, and they can obviously continue to train whilst they're furloughed. However, you've got to be careful that you can't drop them below the apprenticeship minimum wage, living wage, or the national minimum wage. So this applies only to apprentices. You've got to make sure that they're up on being paid their normal wage, because obviously they're training. That's different to your normal employees who maybe are under the national minimum wage or the living wage. So just watch that out if you've got any apprentices working for you. So how do you go about who you can claim for? So obviously you can claim for those furloughed employees that were on payroll on or before 28th Feb, and employees hired after cannot be furloughed and claimed for in accordance with the scheme. So they have to be on the payroll scheme at that date, and that includes full-time, part-time, agency, flexible 0-hour contracts from foreign nationals, and to be eligible for the grant. Right, again, this is so important. We're getting loads of questions about people working whilst they're being furloughed. So when on furlough, an employee cannot undertake work for or on behalf of the organisation or any linked or associated organisation. This includes providing services or generating revenue. So you've got to be really, really clear. They cannot work for you. Employers are free to consider allocating any critical business tasks to staff that are not furloughed. While on furlough, the employee's wage will be subject to usual income tax and other deductions. However, I am being asked about second employment, or people who have been furloughed, whether they can look for another job. If there's someone, for example, has been put on an 80% wage, and the 20% that they're losing, obviously it makes a big difference to them. Can they then go and find part-time work as a, I know, in the supermarkets, or delivery driver, or in the NHS? They can do, but they have to get their employer to agree that they can work part-time elsewhere. So yes, they can work whilst they're being furloughed, but the employer needs to agree that before they go ahead and do that. If you've made anybody redundant, or they stop working for you after the 28th of Feb, you can go back and re-employ them, put them on furlough, and claim for their wages through the scheme. Obviously, the big issue with that is that, please God, that we've been told that the scheme is going to be up and running on or around the 20th of April, and the rebate should be paid by the end of April. However, as you and I know, that HMRC aren't very good at keeping their word or getting things to work on time, so we will have to just wait and see if that happens. So if you do take somebody back on who you've made redundant, and then you need to maybe fund their salary for April until the rebate comes in. So just watch that if you are thinking about doing that. If employees are working reduced hours, they cannot be furloughed, not eligible for the scheme, and you can only claim for employees that started unpaid leave after the 28th of February. So a little bit of a summary of self-isolating or on sick leave. So if they are on sick leave or self-isolating, they're able to get the statutory sick pay, which is 94 quid a week, which the employer can reclaim as long as, I think they've got less than 250 employees, which covers most people. So you are able to claim that back. And it's obviously not intended for short-term absences from work. And obviously there's as most people now know, there's a 3-week minimum furlough period for you to enable you to claim the rebate back. So short-term illness self-isolation should not be a consideration deciding whether to furlough an employee. If, however, the employers want to furlough employees for business reasons and they are currently off sick, they are eligible to do so, as with other employees. So they should no longer receive sick pay and will be classified as a furloughed employee. Employees are also entitled, who are being shielded off on long-term sick leave. Is up to the employers to decide whether to furlough these employees. Again, you can obviously claim back the rebate under the scheme, and obviously the SSP rebate scheme for the same employee, but not for the same period of time. It's got to be one or the other. You can't do both. So obviously, I'll imagine you're going to furlough that employee because obviously you're going to get the full rebate, and they're obviously going to get more than they would under SSP. So just watch that if anyone is on sick leave or self-isolating. Again, if they become sick while they're furloughed, you can they can pay them their sick pay, but I don't see why you would. Where the furlough, you would get a rebate, and obviously the employer will get more money, but that decision is entirely up to you. Employers are required to pay SSP themselves, although they may qualify for rebate up to 2 weeks of SSP, so you can get 2 weeks SSP back. And this was announced right early on to help employers if people are on sick. So a little bit about SSP. So who can claim? As well as employees, the grant, you can be claimed for any of the following group. So now we've got clarification that office holders, including company directors, salaried members of LLPs, agency workers, which is quite important, which includes umbrella companies, and Limb B workers, which I have no idea what a Limb B worker is. So maybe someone could help let me know what a Limb B worker is. I'd like to know, because I've never come across one of them. But if you do know one, they're covered. So again, we're getting loads of questions over company directors now that we've had clarification. Unfortunately, the clarification still leaves a very grey area of what duties a director can do whilst being furloughed. So this is straight from HMRC's website. Again, not very clear. You can read into it what you like, but directors really should not be generating any income for the business, and they really should just be carrying out their director duties to fulfill their statutory obligations. So they should not work of any kind or provide services to on behalf of the company. However, as a director, and director's responsibilities would be to sort of ensure that, okay, the business can continue to trade, and you chasing money in from customers, making sure accounts are being filed on time, and so forth. And also that this applies to one-man band companies, personal service companies, and if you're a sole director. Regarding contractors, this is just something they brought in to do with the public sector engagements. I'm not sure if anyone's involved in this, but where they were involved in IR35 working through by your own limited company, they've relaxed the rules regarding sort of one-man band companies under IR35, but now contractors are deemed employees according to the off-payroll working rules and can now be eligible for the scheme, but that is only in the public sector, so not yet into the private sector. And on that note, IR35 for the private sector has been delayed a year. So if anyone who hasn't already been informed that has now been delayed, so a little bit of respite there. Again, what's been announced recently, employee transfers under TUPE or change of ownership. So all of that, if that has happened in your business, you can still apply for the scheme under those rules. Again, maternity pay, adoption leave, paternity or shared parental leave, normal rules apply, and you can claim through the scheme for enhanced earnings, qualify for those. So this is now quite interesting. HMRC sent out quite a few emails, I think last week, letting businesses know that they can now go ahead and claim from the 20th. So a little bit of background, that the portal they've built within 6 weeks, which is unbelievable really, and they've been testing it over the last couple of days with live data, they've said will be available on or around the 20th. So it could be a couple of days after, but that's the date that they're sort of aiming for. Now, once the portal is up and ready to accept applications, this is the information that you're going to need to make the claim. I've highlighted the three in sort of the larger items there, because they're the information that, as a payroll bureau, we act for a lot of clients who we do their payroll for. That those 3 bits of information we will not have on our records. Everything else we will have: the NI number, the names, you will have your reference numbers, but we won't have the details in respect of the claim period, when it started and when you expect it to end, because we don't know if it would have started from the 1st of March or whether it was starting from the 20th of March was when it was all announced, or if it's from the 1st of April. So they're sort of the 3 key dates that people seem to have started their furloughing their employees. We need to know that, obviously, to put the claim through. Again, we don't know the amount that's being claimed. We don't know if you're, we need to put on the payroll and the pay slips whether you're paying them 80% or 100%. Make sure that it's a minimum of 3 consecutive weeks. And most importantly, we won't have your bank account number and sort code to enable the rebates to be paid into your account. So they're the 3 key information that we need. For the clients that we act for and do their payroll, emails have either been sent or in the process of being sent over the next couple of days, asking for the 3 bits of information, and for you to give us that information immediately, so we're all ready to go when the portal is up and ready to accept applications. So the backdating to the 1st of March, that is only where you would have made somebody redundant and you brought them back on to the payroll, because it was not until the 20th of March that this whole scheme was then made live and people were aware of it. So really most people will be going from the 20th of March or from the 1st of April, as a lot of people did pay 100% and didn't furlough people until the 1st of April. So that talks about the 3 consecutive weeks, which we've talked about. When they return to work, they must be taken off furlough. And again, you can be furloughed multiple times. You can bring somebody back for a day, catch up with the work, a couple of days, and then put them back on furlough for another 3 weeks. And there's nothing wrong with that, and you're still able to make the claim. Again, just to recap, 80% of the wage costs of furloughed employees, subject to a cap of £2.5 grand per month per employee. The employer's national insurance contributions and the employer's pension contributions are also claimable. The employer's national insurance is actually claimed on the £2,500 cap per employee per month, and not on the full salary. So just watch that when you're doing your calculations, if you are doing them yourself. When you are doing the calculations, if wages are on a fixed annual amount, it should be quite easy to work out, because that's what was paid in the month to 29th of Feb. However, if your employee's salary varies, there's a calculation that you need to do, and the calculation it varies between whether they've been employed for a full year or more. You can claim the higher of the earnings for the same month in the previous year, or the average of the monthly earnings for 1920. And if obviously been employed for less than a year, then you can take the average monthly earnings since they started working for you. Average earnings can include regular contractual pay such as wages, compulsory commission, and past overtime. So again, they've made it quite clear now that commission can be included, but it's obviously got to be compulsory commission, not discretionary. So discretionary would be like tips, bonuses, or payments for that kind. So, and it doesn't include any non-cash payments like benefits in kind. So you do have to maybe just work out your calculations before, when you obviously submit the claim. So practically speaking, this means the amount paid is based on your contractual earnings as paid in Feb, or if the calculation is based on variable pay, an average of the contractual earnings for 1920 paid up to 28th of Feb. So that's how you work out your wages. So you need to make sure, obviously, you're doing the calculations. What it might be worth doing if you're doing your own payroll now is doing those calculations now. So again, you're ready to go when the portal is up and running for you to submit the claim. So HMRC will check your claim, and obviously if you're eligible, then the payment will be made into your bank account by BACS, and obviously the idea is that you would have paid your employees before you get the grant, and the idea is that obviously you're getting reimbursed up to 80%, or up to the cap of £2.5 grand, and you're not allowed to sort of take any admin charges for doing any of this work from the employee when you're working it out. So again, just a recap for your employees, that they cannot work, they can't make money for your organisation or any organisation linked to your company, cannot provide services for your organisation or any organisation linked. They can take part in volunteer work or training regarding your company. So just be careful with that. I have been asked about this on numerous occasions, and have been warned that HMRC will be doing audits, and they will be checking to make sure that the employees have got their letters, that the employees will receive the letters from the employer. These letters are kept on file in case HMRC do want to see evidence that they have been furloughed. So just do watch out for that. You will obviously still pay your taxes as normal, and the employees will still have their tax and NI deducted from their wages, and you as a company is still meant to pay over the PAYE each month. Obviously, if cash is tight, then you need to phone HMRC and get the PAYE deferred for a couple of months, but you are meant to obviously still pay the PAYE and still process the wages in the normal fashion. So there's sort of two submissions here. You still have to run your payroll as normal. You still need to pay them as normal. You might need to split their normal wages compared to their furlough wages, and I've been told that Xero, I think overnight, have updated their payroll module to include like a tick box to say whether they've been furloughed or not. So it's easy then to see what's been what the furlough rate is and what the normal gross rate is. So you run that normally, and you still submit your RTI every month, and then you will then to go onto the portal to obviously claim the rebate. So you've got sort of two submissions to do, and they're completely separate. So you still need to carry on and do your POA submissions as normal. And again, the employee still have all the employment rights whilst they're on furlough: SSP, maternity, holiday pay, etc., etc. So this was So this was 3 questions courtesy of a client that sent in yesterday, and I think what I've tried to cover in the previous slides some of the answers to this, but it was good just to show some peculiarities with the scheme and what our thinking is behind our answers. So we've been asked if a client is able to offer free training to customers in this period of time, then can the individuals that give the training be furloughed on the basis that they're willing to give that voluntary service to our customers? Well, unfortunately not, because you're still providing the service. If I go back, you're still providing services for your organisation, and that just covers that then. You can do volunteering, but it's the employee does the volunteering rather than the customer or the person given the training given the volunteering. So unfortunately there's not much you can do with that. Yes, company directors can furlough themselves, and we've talked about that. You just got to be a little bit careful of the sort of work that you're actually doing, because organising payroll, including the furlough process, is that really a director's duty? It's a legal duty, but is it a director's duty? A little bit of a grey area, but to be honest, I can't see HMRC querying it and going into that much detail. It's really trying to stop the director going out and still seeing clients, still drumming up business. Maybe the recruitment company is still interviewing and still doing placements if they're lucky at the moment to do that. That obviously you can't do, but it's more just to cover those directors who still need to do some sort of company director duties. So yes, they can, but very grey area, so you just got a little bit careful. And I like the last question is great, where an employee has been furloughed, but they want to continue working because they are bored out of their wits, and just want to keep busy. Unfortunately, it's not very clear, the legislation, but our thinking is that, yeah, if the employee decides to work without being asked, then cannot see a problem. However, you obviously should not ask them to work. So it's got to be very clear that the employee is doing it off his own back. You're not asking them to do anything, and it's something they want to do voluntarily. So just got to be a bit careful with maybe the way you're wording emails with that employee, but we can't see a huge problem for the employee to voluntarily work, as long as he's sort of, again, you've got to be careful, because he shouldn't really be providing service or making money for your organisation. Again, that's such a grey area. He could be making money for your organisation by doing R&D work, which could bring in future earnings. So again, you've got to be very careful. However, on that note, anything to do with HR, we've teamed up with guys from Peninsula, and they're more than happy to help clients of Raffingers with any HR advice regarding the job retention scheme, how to deal with employee concerns. If you've got maybe redundancy issues, they will help you with that. And there's the phone number if you want to give them a call. And they're more than willing to help. So ask for Gary Hilton. I'm sure he will be more than willing to help. So really, that's the job retention scheme. I think I've covered quite a lot of the new stuff and just gone reviewed some of the old stuff that we're all sort of aware of. Hopefully next week, I think it's going to be a big week next week when the portal goes live. We should be able to do the submissions. If you need any help, if you run your own payroll scheme, if you need any help with doing the calculations, then obviously let us know. We can try and help you as much as we possibly can. And we should see how quickly HMRC actually pay the refunds. And what we are sort of warning clients that don't rely on the rebate coming into your bank account on the 30th of April when you need to pay your wages. You really need to have a backup plan put in place, that you've got the funds and the finances to pay the wages on the 30th of April in case you don't get your rebate. So just please bear that in mind. Again, it's going to be completely out of our hands. We will put the claim in as quickly as we possibly can. However, there's no way we're going to be phoning up HMRC and saying, when is this, when are the rebates going to be paid? Because we've submitted it 2 or 3 days ago and we're getting close to the 30th of April. So please make sure you've got yourself covered for that. So a little bit of background on CBILS. This is, again, becoming a hot topic, especially in the news. The funds that have been made available, the £330 billion worth of funds, just aren't getting out in the marketplace. And just some feedback from clients who have put applications in. We've teamed up with CBILS, who are doing a lot of research and a lot of applications together with ourselves, and just going through some of the feedback. So to be eligible for CBILS, now the CBILS, all it is this is an existing funding facility that the banks have always been offering. So this is just normal finance funding. This is normal loans, overdrafts. This is not a completely new scheme that the government have put together. This is just using the old-fashioned existing funding schemes that are out there, and just the CBILS is basically a guarantee that the government are putting in place with the banks to say that we'll cover 80% of the security if, for any reason, that the company is unable to repay the loan and they call the loan in. So that's all it is. So where we're having a huge issue trying to get clients to understand is that the business has to be viable. If it wasn't viable before the pandemic, then it's not going to be viable now. If anything, it's going to be even worse. So speaking to the guys at CBILS, that a viable business are covered by these 3 points. So the bank will look at 3 years of positive net worth. So if the business is maybe a fintech startup and is in a loss-making situation, you're not going to get a loan. It has to be showing 3 years of positive net worth. You've got to have retained profit, i.e. profit left in the business over the previous years, year on year. You've got to have retained profit in there. So you've got a bit of a buffer on the balance sheet, money held, money at the bank, or money owed to you from your debtors. And the third one, which is quite interesting, that they look at the EBITDA, which is the earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, and amortization. And then they'll take the dividends out, and that figure, they will see if there's 150% to 200% cover. For example, if your EBITDA less your dividends is 150 grand, then you're going to get the facility. You should be able to borrow 100 grand against the retained earnings in the business. So that gives you a rough idea of what the banks are looking at. And to be honest, if you don't really hit that criteria, you've really only got your existing bank that you can go to, because all the other banks have turned around and said that we're only dealing with our existing customers. So if you're with Lloyds, and I know that Lloyds are now 2 or 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks behind processing applications. They're sending out a general email saying, thank you for your application. We're going to review it hopefully within 2 weeks. If they turn you down, then there's not many places you can go on the market to then get another loan with another bank. So your existing bank is your best bet, and there are players in the market who will help you, but again, it's going to be hard work getting a loan if your existing bank have turned you down. But CBILS have got those lenders sort of in the background and can help you if they feel that your existing bank is not being very helpful or treating you harshly. And also, we're hearing that if different bank managers are dealing with differently, if you've got a good relationship with your bank manager, even if you know who your bank manager is, you might get a loan compared to somebody who doesn't really know who their bank manager is, or maybe has only been with the bank sort of a few months. So affordability calculations are still applicable. So they're still going to want to see that you can afford to repay that loan. They want to see the cash flow having this graph of going up, down, and then coming out of obviously the lockdown and business starting to go back to normal. They still want to see all of that information. So more banks are now coming on board as part of the CBILS-Application, and there are a few of the new ones that have been announced recently. So these are the sort of part of the application, and again, this is quite a drawn out process. You need a lot of information. You need to really sort of get your house in order from finance point of view and the documents that they're asking. So obviously you're going to want to know how much you want to borrow, which is very difficult when you really don't know how long the lockdown is going to last. We really don't know when we're going to come out of it and when things start getting back to normal, but they obviously want to know how much you would like to borrow, what the money is for, whether it's working capital, whether the lender will check that it's a suitable business purpose and the right type of finance for your needs, whether it's invoice discounting, whether it's an increase in your overdraft, whether it's a long-term loan, asset finance. They're going to look at all of that in its entirety. And obviously how long you want the loan for. I think with the CBILS, a maximum of 6 years. Again, you'd want to maybe spread it as much as you possibly can. Supporting documents, these are the sort of, they've relaxed some of the information. I know now that I've heard that with cash flow forecasting and business plans that they don't want a detailed cash flow forecast. They would like to see one, but you don't need to go to huge detail. Three-way forecasting, maybe you don't have to do, which is a profit and loss, cash flow and a balance sheet. Maybe just a cash flow forecast to give them some idea of what the business is going to look like going forward. They might accept that. Ideally, you'd want management accounts to show that you're on top of the finances. Obviously, if you're using Xero, QBO, any cloud-based bookkeeping system, you should be able to prepare management accounts fairly quickly as long as everything's up to date. And again, business plans, I doubt now that the banks are that interested to see a full-blown business plan, but obviously they're going to want to see some narrative of how you intend to get out of the current crisis and what you've done to get what you've done so far regarding furloughing employees and other cost-cutting exercises you've done in the business. You just haven't gone straight away to the bank to get a loan. And obviously historic accounts goes without saying. However, with the CBILS, you're in the hands of the lender. There's not a lot you can do once you've put your application in. The problem is now with the lenders is that I think they're 20 or 30% down on their numbers to process these applications because some are self-isolating, not in the branch, working remotely. So they just haven't got the manpower either to actually generate and process all the applications. However, recently, I think it was last week, they announced that the lenders will not take personal guarantees of any form for facilities below 250. And I've actually heard that Barclays are actually relaxing the personal guarantees on any of their CBILS loans, which is quite nice. And they're just looking, these are some of the discretionary options that the lenders are going through at the moment. And one thing that is very, I think, very important is that they're not going to look very favourably if you're refinancing existing debt with a CBILS loan. The idea of the CBILS loan is to get through the next few months and build the business back up. If you're looking to refinance sort of expensive asset finance or existing debt, I think the bank aren't going to be too happy doing that. But again, you speak to your lender, they might look at the bigger picture. They might want to look at taking the whole business on with the invoice discounting maybe, and will maybe refinance assets using better rates that they can offer. So again, each lender is looking at it differently. So there's a couple of other points regarding the CBILS. So that's all to do with the CBILS. Not much more to say about that. Again, we can help you with those applications, get the information ready to submit. Apart from Lloyds, I think that some of the banks are turning them around fairly quickly, which will obviously help come paying the April and May wages. So planning for the recovery. So just a few slides to help you think about what to do with your business whilst you're sort of on lockdown and whilst business is a little bit slow. So there's a nice quote there: it's easy to know the right thing to do after something has happened, but it's hard to predict the future, which can be more applicable than it is today. So what can you do as a business owner to use this downtime productively and to merge stronger, more efficient, and a much more profitable business? So we've got, I think, 3 or 4 main topics here, and the first one is the numbers. So you need to be on top of your cash flows. You need to know what your cash flow is going to look like over the next 2 or 3 months. If anything, I would maybe do your cash flows to the end of the year. You can only guess what is going to be and when you think we're going to come out of the lockdown, but at least you've got those figures ready to change and filter through once things start settling down. And it's good to have that basic full template there ready for you to go and start drilling down. So yeah, I would start drilling down line by line into your business costs and consider if you should be downsizing, just changing your working practices. So the cash flows need to be able to show profitability, cash flow in the balance sheet. Ideally, you want to see, okay, you can have a profitable business, but because the cash is not coming in quick enough, debtors, your customers are taking 60, 90, 120 days to pay your bills, yet you could be profitable, but the cash is not coming in quick enough. You will want to see that effect on your business. So that's why it's so important to do the profit and loss and the cash flow forecasting at the same time. And we've got software to enable us to do that. And you can start flexing those figures. You can do what if analysis. If maybe the sales don't come in the summer as expected and they move a couple of months, you can do all that from your cash flow modeling. So really important. Third one, so as important, I think most of the businesses have now done this. You've got to look at every single line of your cost, all your expenditure that you're incurring in your business. Where can you make savings? Can you cut your fixed costs? Can you get better deals? Can you look at alternative supply relationships without compromising on quality of supply? Can you look at your supply chains? And once the lockdown is lifted, can you then look at cheaper suppliers? And I think now where some landlords are being very, very difficult and not really helping much, and some suppliers again aren't being very helpful. I think a lot of people will have very long memories and will look to move elsewhere after the lockdown. So just watch people asking you for discounts or from payment holidays. Just bear in mind whether that's something you want to do to have a long-term relationship with your customers. So again, check your contracts for usage terms and any minimum charges for utilities, office equipment, etc. Look if you can really cut that back at the moment, and obviously use this time to speak to your suppliers and how you can manage your stock and other suppliers. So look at everything that's going out and make some really big decisions and make sure that you're doing everything you possibly can. It goes without saying that obviously the VAT is being deferred. You speak to HMRC to defer the PAYE and the corporation tax if you can. I know the 31st of July second payments on account have also been deferred. However, the important word in there is deferment. All you're doing is pushing those taxes and those payments down the road. So you've got to make sure that your cash flow and your forecasting is put in place. So when we do come out of this, then you know if you've got the cash and how you can manage the cash and who you need to pay when we come out of this as a priority. So I think coming out of the lockdown and out of this crisis, it's going to be even more important to have your cash flows and trying to get money in as quickly as you possibly can. Looking at invoice discounting, look at spot invoice discounting, looking at your software. If you're using Xero, look at software that links with Xero to get your customers to pay you as quickly as possible using, I know, products like Chaser or Satago to enable them to make sure that clients are paying you as quickly as possible. So all of that we should be looking at now, whilst you're on sort of whilst the businesses aren't sort of as busy as it should be. Even looking at your bookkeeping system, are you using a Sage product, a desktop system, whereas you know you should be using a cloud-based system like Zero QBO? Looking at Receipt Bank as a way to make all your systems a lot more efficient. Is that something you should be doing now as well? And again, obviously we can help you if that's something you want to do. So you need to, the second part is look at your product, services and working practices. So as we all know, a lot of us been working from home. Now, is that something that you want to do for the longer term? Did that work? Is that a way of maybe cutting your costs, your sort of fixed costs with your rent and the rates and everything like that? Did that work for you? And it's something that you want to put in place on the longer term. Also, have you introduced new product ranges or services? So we've seen quite a lot of businesses being quite proactive with restaurants. A lot of them are now doing deliveries, and a lot of events are now being held online via webinars. Is that something? A lot of, I know, personal trainers are now doing stuff online, and if anything, charging and doing well out of the crisis, and haven't seen much of a change in their income because they've thought out of the box and doing stuff that works for the customer and is able to be delivered in a really neat way. So that's all talking about working from home, and is that something you can do permanently? So as businesses grow or get comfortable, they often become overburdened and inefficient processes begin to creep in. To ensure you're running your business in the most efficient way, we can review all your processes and suggest improvements to make them more effective. So is there something, whilst you're sort of sitting at home and knowing that you needed to, I don't know, document all your processes that your business does at the moment? Is that something you could do whilst you're on lockdown? So your people. So the third one, who's impressed you during this time? Are they the guys that you want alongside you when we come out of this? Have they taken on different roles? Who's stepped up to the plate? Who's really impressed you during this difficult time? Or have you found some of the old war horses sort of being a bit awkward and not really being very helpful? And again, is there ways that you can maybe try and help the people, help your HR, the culture within your business whilst we're in this quiet period? Again, what we've discovered is that it's amazing when people have been sort of put on lockdown or working from home, that the roles and responsibilities each person has been reviewed. Were people just being made to look busy to keep their jobs sort of alive? And I think it's been quite evident, some of the clients I've been speaking to, that they have said that once we get out of this, that they're reviewing their whole organisation chart, putting together what we call as accountability chart to see what people's jobs and roles were, and trying to make the business a lot more efficient than it was. And this has sort of made them see that there could be efficiency savings from a people point of view as well. So is there something that you can do whilst you're sort of at home and waiting for the business to sort of pick up? Again, your profile, this is all to do with your marketing, how you can get your business, how you're communicating with your customers. Are you still keeping in touch with your customers? Are you still sort of very vocal on social media, or have you just sort of disappeared and hidden away from all your customers and suppliers and waiting for this whole thing to sort of go away and we'll come back to normal? So I think marketing is really important during these difficult times. Is a marketing plan something that once we get out of this, is that something you want to look at, looking at social media, digital marketing, and re-engaging with your customers and obviously new customers? So Ashley Bloom, who's our marketing exec in the office, she's more than willing to help maybe put marketing plans together, just sort of bounce some ideas off of you. And she's helped quite a few clients in this area. So I think, again, there could be something quite important to start planning when we get out of this god awful mess. So we'll eventually get there, but it'd be good to put things in place now, because I guarantee you, once we start coming out of lockdown is going to be absolute chaos. And I think everyone's going to be mentally busy, and they're going to look back and go, oh, those couple of weeks, those couple of months, oh, I wish I'd done my marketing plan, I wish I'd looked at my business, I wish I looked at processes and so on. So really think about that. And that then leads to the fifth one, which is make a plan. So when you're looking at this, have you sat down and done your business plan? Have you done a marketing plan? Have you done a finance plan? All these we can help you with. We've got a great tool that actually does a one-page plan. You put all of these ideas down, and on a one page you can see exactly where you want your business to go, what your goals are and your objectives, and what sort of major challenges you have at the moment. So writing down your business plan is really important, and it might give you sort of something to look forward to sort of get you back into the rhythm of sort of running your business and sort of thinking about your business again. I think that could be important. Even some people have started rebuilding websites and looking at things like that, learning new sort of skills, especially on the digital marketing side. I think everyone now can use Zoom and Teams, which is amazing. And that just shows you what you can learn whilst you sort of have a bit of time. So how can we help as Raffingers? Try not to do the hard sell, but obviously we can help with the forecasting. We can help you do some funding applications through Capitalise, and obviously we can help with the JRS, the furloughing rebates once the portal goes live, which hopefully should be around the 20th of April next Monday. Again, when you're ready, so that's sort of stuff now, but I think the longer term, medium to longer term, start looking at your organisation reviews, looking at your accountability chart, looking at who's in your business, that their roles and responsibilities. Look at the systems and processing. We can look at those, reviewing, making sure you're using the technology, the cloud systems as efficiently as possible. Again, I've talked about marketing. Ashley's really good at helping you with that. Looking at business plans, and even I think number 5, I think should be up there with number 4, to be honest, right now. So we should be looking at cash flow management coaching using the Profit First system that we're now certified to implement in businesses. I think coming out of this now more than ever, that having a cash flow management system in your business is so important. And again, we can go through that and how that can help businesses manage the cash flow as we get out of this, because as I said, I think that's going to be equally important when we come out of this, rather than what we're in now, because at the moment nothing's really happening, everything's being deferred. It's only when all those deferments have to start being paid that you really do need to manage the cash flow, and to do that whilst trying to run the business, get the sales going again and the customer relationships going again, it's going to be hard. So something I'm very passionate about, that you should really look at some form of cash flow management coaching system. And also no obligation and a no cost to clients of ours. We're putting together we can be remote sessions at the moment, so we can actually do this now. Hopefully when we will get back together, it's much better face to face. Sit down and look at your goals for your business, how you plan to achieve them, look at your issues and challenges, and look at your profitability and cash flow, and how we can work with you to address a lot of these issues. So there's something we can do, and we'll be doing for quite a few clients over the past few months. So that was 50 minutes. That was quite long, and hopefully I've covered quite a lot of people. Still got 90 odd people on the webinar, which is really good. And I think Paul's covered a lot of the questions as well. So I've got no Q&A to look at. There's a few in the chat. So let me see what the chat, some of the questions in the chat. I've got maybe 5 minutes to cover those, and I'll try and answer as many as I can possibly can. So the vulnerable list being shielded for 12 weeks by the government and are on 0 hours, can they be furloughed? What is the best mode of payment for 0-hour contract workers who are isolating for more than 3 weeks? SSP, furlough, universal credit. So yes, they can be furloughed as long as obviously they're on the payroll February 2020. And if they're on 0-hour contract workers, there was that sort of formula of working out how much they should be getting paid. And also you can claim universal credit whilst you're being furloughed. There's nothing wrong with that. And I was speaking to a client just before the webinar. He did wait a while to complete the universal credit application, but he completed it 2 days ago. I think it was 2 days ago or at the end of last week. Got a phone call this morning from someone from Universal Credit saying, yes, you are eligible for the scheme. We can pay you £800 up front now, and obviously take back any of the universal credit allowance that you get. He was quite amazed that he actually got through and completed the application and actually got his money pretty quick. So you can be doing that. So definitely worth looking at applying for universal credit if you need to. So I've got another question. Solo limited company. I furloughed myself on the 1st of April, so I hope to claim 80% of my basic salary as at Feb 2020, which was so much per month. Can I invoice a client for April and May? I won't be doing work for them. It's retainer money. Oh, that's a great question. So I think by you raising invoices, you're doing work. That's not a director's duties. I think if you're raising invoices, it just will prove that you're creating income for your company. I think if you furlough yourself as a director, you really shouldn't be doing any work whatsoever, and even raising sales invoices to your customers. So you've got to be a little bit careful with that. I know with Xero that if you had a recurring task, that the invoice will being sent out automatically every month because it's a retainer invoice, then I think that would be fine because the software is doing it automatically. But where you're then starting getting involved, I think you could leave yourself a little bit exposed with HMRC if they did want to have a check. I have a big commission check coming in during the furlough period, but it's not for work I've done. Is this okay? And can I pay myself dividends whilst being furloughed? Yes, you can pay yourself dividends whilst being furloughed. Obviously, you can only pay dividends out of profits. Obviously, if you've got retained profits, you can obviously continue paying yourself dividends from the business. I think that's hopefully Paul's answer. I've answered that. Oh, right, yeah, Paul's also did it. That's cool. So Bethany, with the enrolment of the PA online, how would we do this? Right, so if you've already registered with HMRC for like corporation tax or self-assessment or VAT, you would go in. I can send you the link if you want to email me afterwards, but you can go in and sort of tell HMRC you've already got an account set up, you want to now add the PAYE, and they will do that. In the good old days before the crisis, that they would send you a letter within 10 days with an activation code, and obviously that's not going to work now because all the businesses are closed and you're not going to be able to access and get into the office to get your letter. So they have said that they're going to be sending these activation codes out by email, but do make sure you've got your POA online reference. If you haven't and you have not done it, you will not be able to claim your rebate. So if anything from today, everyone should make sure that their POA online is being set up. So we'd like to offer our staff online training. Can they do this voluntarily, or do they need to be paid for their time, as most of it will be half a day? So yeah, you can do, so that was the whole part that the furloughing, you can still do training to your employees, even if they're on furlough. So again, that's fine. Ooh, so that's most of them in the chat. So hopefully most of the people have covered it in the Q&A. So back to the Q&A, I think there's 2 more in there. Oh, I can't seem to open my Q&A, Paul. I'll leave that then for you to answer. I can't open, I can only open the chat. So, oh, you've cleared them. Amazing. So hopefully you've all found that useful. And we're going to now try and do these, I think, once a week because there's not much going on. I think next week's going to be a massive week with the rebates. So depending on how that goes, we'll do another webinar, maybe just an update on that, and obviously an update on the CBILS, which is crazy because things are changing literally on a daily basis. It's unbelievable, and I don't think the press releases last night about the state of the economy, if we continue lockdown to the end of June, did any help at all. But we're here to help you as much as we possibly can. Don't be frightened of phoning us or emailing us. Any questions? Paul is our furlough CBILS expert, so he loves dealing with all the emails. As you can tell by the speed he's answering a lot of your questions. And some of the answers we're just not going to know, because we go to HMRC website and it's so vague, and they're not even aware of some of the answers. And even today, reading some stuff about the portal, you think, oh crikey, look, even the HMRC don't know how the portal is going to work. We don't know, for example, you've got 50 employees, whether you've got to individually enter 50 employees' details, or is there going to be a CSV import facility? We just don't know. We don't know how quickly they're going to repay the refunds. We just got no idea. Are they going to check first? We've got no idea. Will it crash when there's millions of people trying to access the portal? No idea. So it's a sort of a wait and see, but which is really difficult because people need the cash and need the funding as quickly as possible. I think the bank funding has just not worked quick enough, and there's been a lot of lobbying to the Chancellor to make sure to get other schemes up and running to help the smaller business and the one-man businesses to get there. But just keep an eye out for a lot of our emails, keep an eye out for future webinars, and please, any questions you must ask us. Hopefully you found that useful, and hopefully we'll be in touch soon. Thank you.